I'm Doug MacKenzie.
And I'm John Ward.
And we're the co-hosts of the ABCs of IBC podcast.
Come join us as we share our unique perspective on the infinite banking concept as the creator, Nelson Nash, intended.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey, it's so good to see that people are really starting to listen in every week. You know, the numbers keep growing, and so thank you, everyone.
Yes,
as
thank
always.
you. We truly appreciate it.
Yeah, because ultimately, right, the more people that are listening, that means people are probably sharing it with friends and family, and more people are getting to know about the show. And that's what we want. We want more people to at least know about this, right? So thank you.
The
again.
Listeners, they've gone from 2 to 3. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So I did want to talk a little bit about last week's show, just briefly, because this kind of ties into what we're going to talk about this week. And, sometimes people look at, how long they're going to have to pay into a policy. And, that I use the words, have to pay into the policy, right? But there's all these benefits for doing it. It's not like some hardship. And when we say, well, this one has you paying for this child policy till they're 75, and some people might get spooked by that, right? But of course, you're teaching them about this. It's going to be utilized. I mean, once the kids really experience it, the parents really experience it, they're going to keep that thing going. There's no reason not to, because it's not just life insurance. And I say just, meaning as if that's not good enough, but it's part of the reason a lot of people don't have life insurance is because they think it's just about the life insurance benefit, right? They don't think about all these other benefits. So, you'll be looking for places to put your cash. And when you've got this cogeneration plant cranking, you want to keep fueling it, right? Like you're enjoying this fire, the heat that it's throwing off, and you want to keep putting logs on. And so you're not going to look at it like, oh, that's such a drag that we have to keep paying. And I'm going to, again, be a little verbose here. I look at it like I was watching a video. It was just something that came through on my YouTube algorithm, and it was an actor that I don't really know. And I guess he's a martial artist. And I mean, I think he was in his mid-50s, and he was in incredible shape. And he was, the video was going to be about him talking about what he does to take care of himself. At the very beginning of the video, like he said, I get to do this, right? I get to do this. It's sometimes how I get myself out of bed in the morning, Doug. Right? Is like, I get to have this day, right? As long as, God's willing, I get to have this day, but I got it right now, and I bounce right out of bed. And I kind of look at it the same way with these policies, is we get to pay these premiums. Like, that's an honor. It's like,
oh yeah. I have one coming up right now, and I was pretty excited to be transferring cash out of my savings account into checking to pay for that, which I did this morning.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
That always feels good.
It does. Yeah. And it's counterintuitive because it's one of the only things that I pay that I am very happy to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. You're a spendthrift, right? So
yeah,
you're not really interested in all.
No, there's a lot of things I view. I have to spend money on these things, but it's not like an enjoyable thing. But this is something that I'm more than happy to do because I have access to that money again, and it's locked in there and growing, like you said. And I think that what we're going to bring up today has mainly been talked about in previous episodes, but based on conversations that John and I have had recently with clients and potential clients, we felt it was important to revisit this and devote an episode specifically towards the mentality around capitalizing, because it is counterintuitive to how folks normally think about where money goes out of their system for other purchases. And I mean, I've run into this quite a bit, as I think you have too, John, where you and I, in most scenarios, are going to set up policies that are payable for quite a long time, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that's the goal. And we've run into scenarios where people say, well, I have someone else that can, they can set this up to pay for a much shorter time. I mean, we could too, but we're kind of missing the point there. Like, it's the fact that down the road, 10 years, 15 years down the road, if you can no longer pay premium and you want to pay premium still, you just can't do it. Or if your health conditions have changed and you don't qualify to set up another policy, you just can't do it. The contract ended, right?
Yeah. Well,
so
yeah.
You've really kind of painted yourself into a corner there. And we're not saying that there's no scenarios where getting like a 10-pay policy or a shorter pay policy wouldn't make sense. But for the vast majority of people that have incomes, it really doesn't make sense off the bat to set up a policy like that, because we have a lot of options later on down the road to shorten the time frame on paying a policy if one wanted, but there's no other options to lengthen that time frame.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we definitely have to point out the fact that, I think we've touched upon it, but there's so many options that you have once you've funded these policies enough, right? Then dividends, if they're paid out, they can help pay premiums. You can do that, which is called an offset, right? Or you can do this paid up, which you can really stop, funding the policy. And it doesn't crash and burn, right? It's still the life insurance policy. It's still growing in cash value, right? But you're not continuing to add to the pile that will then be in this cogeneration plant, right? Because they've already created this machine, right? And you're just tapping into it, right? And there's thousands, millions of people that are already in, right? And they've already kind of built it. And you're just saying, hey, I'm going to be one of the other people that start to benefit because of what other people have done ahead of me. And I just think that this idea that, yes, if, I was just talking to a 60-year-old woman yesterday, and, it's her first introduction to it, right? She was not a prospect. She was just somebody I was talking to. And she wanted to, know what it is I do. And so I was sharing that. And it's almost like the tension that could get created when you start to talk about it, because they're just like, oh my God, my head's spinning. I really, these are always, I'm so many times I'm talking to people that are incredibly, productive in life and very bright, good minds, good power upstairs. And because it's so new, they just like, well, yeah, but that part I don't understand, right? And she said, well, I'm 60, like I don't have any life insurance, but I'm probably too old to do what you're talking about, right? And what I want to say to people that might say that to themselves or say it to me or you, Doug, is you're going to put your money somewhere. Are you too old to put your money somewhere? Right? Are you done? In many cases, the people I'm talking, they're not done generating new income, new cash flow. So they're going to be doing something with it. And many times they're doing some pretty amazing things. They're talking to friends and working with friends, and they're or people that they're aligned with, and they're going to buy properties, and they're going to split it up, and they're going to put it into.
Well, most people are at their highest income earning years at that point as well.
Yeah, and I mean, in Brian Bloom's book, The Capital Equivalent and the Confessions of a CPA, that version of that book series, he uses at the time, I forget what year that came out, I think 2013, and he uses a 55-year-old, and they do a 10-year term policy.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to retire at 65. They're literally not going to create any more salary, for example, right? Because, people that own these sort of passive things, right? Well, I say passive, it's not completely passive. Let's say, you own something that's generating, like real estate, generating income. I mean, you're hoping that the income is going to stay at that level or higher, right? Because you're going to raise rents because your costs are going to go up, right? But there's going to be money, and I say there's going to be Social Security, and people say, well, there's not going to be but there's not going to be a shortage of places to put the money. But we're not saying if you want to do a 10-year, that's not a bad thing. No. But you're not too old if you have money, right? And the industry wants to talk about getting into an annuity, right? But why not start streaming some of that money out and put it right into a policy, get more aggressive. Hopefully your costs are down when you're older, right? So we swing from all the way to this juvenile or child policy all the way. I mean, we literally take both ends of the spectrum and everything in between. These are good for someone who was just born 15 days ago and somebody who is going to live to be 121, right? Like there's nothing as stable and probably beneficial than a permanent whole life insurance policy. And all of the financial products are on the planet. I mean, it's a very unique thing. And if you don't really get to understand it, then you're leaving a huge blind spot. It sounds like I'm selling it. And I start talking like this to this woman. And I'm like, I'm not trying to sell you. You wanted me to, because when she first asked me what I do, I said, I'm a life insurance agent. And I said, I can get into more. There's a little more to it. And I said, we can get into that later. And she said, no, let's get into it now. And of course, I didn't let us get into that because, that's not going to be the beginning of a conversation with a person unless they've come to me seeking out what is this infinite banking thing, right? But we eventually got to it, and it was a lot, and I understand that. You and I both understand that. And that's why we're patient. We want people to come to it at their own speed.
Yeah, that's very true, John. It's not something that it is not something that you can just spring on somebody, in my opinion. I happened to kind of discover IBC by accident, and then wanted to learn more and learned more and thought it couldn't be true, and then learned more and realized it was true. And now that I know that, it is kind of like you said, it's a unicorn financial product. There is nothing else out there even similar to it. I don't think, at least that I've come across. If anyone knows of anything, let me know. And for that reason, it's really our job when working with new clients to help them to see that. Because if someone comes in with that mentality of this is something that is, equivalent to, buying a used car, we're going to shop it around, we're going to pay as little as possible and again, be done with it, right? It's really not the right way to look at getting a correctly designed insurance policy. Because I guarantee you that once it's in place, you're going to want to continue to pay premiums into it if possible, especially if you're younger or if you're a juvenile. Of course, you're going to want that. And so although clients might not see it at first, it's our job to kind of help to show them that capitalizing these things is really important because it really is about how they grow in the long term and what you can do with these things in the long term. And Nelson does talk about this a lot in the book, Becoming Your Own Banker. So of course, if you haven't read it, you should probably read it. It's the basis of everything that we're talking about. But I'm sure people out there have heard the term, don't be afraid to capitalize. And he uses that
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
book. Yeah, quite a bit.
yeah. I agree. He's very strong on that page 44 for those that want to look it up. Um, I want to quote, I think I can quote, and of course I'm giving him credit, is a gentleman named Barry Dyke, who's written several books. And he's a life insurance agent, but he's done a ton in the financial world. Run pension plans and all kinds of third party benefit administration. He's just done a ton. He's a registered investment advisor, all that kind of stuff. But he's really about life insurance. And in his book, The Pirates of Manhattan, which is it's an amazing book, really is. But he says at one point, he says, economics in the final analysis is the study of how what limited resources we have are allocated. So how we allocate the resources we have. And he says our decisions concerning our economic purchases should be to maximize the benefits we receive with our purchases. And the benefits received should exceed the amount we paid for something. And he says, in regards to financial products, permanent life insurance maximizes economic benefits better than any other product in the marketplace. And he says that's something that mainstream America has forgotten, because there was a time that, they did use this permanent whole life insurance as a core to the foundation of their financial lives, back in the early part of the 20th century. So
up until the mid part too. Yeah, they were a lot more prevalent. That's a good quote. I like that quote, John.
Yeah, I mean, that's just another book for people. It's funny because this woman asked me, she says, I said, well, I have a podcast if you want to listen to it. And she says, do you recommend any books? I said, well, you mean, well, like I'm on the podcast? She goes, yeah. Do you guys, if I listen, do you guys going to recommend books? And so here's a book I highly recommend. And, what happens inside these books, a lot of authors will start talking about other books, right? And they'll talk about the books. And Nelson Nash did the same in the back of Becoming Your Own Banker. There's a long list of recommended readings. And Barry Dyke is no different. And, I'm highlighting all these, right? I mean, I've got so many books, it's ridiculous. But strangely enough, these things are just not on everybody's shelf. You're not going to find these books because the machine to have you do something else, put your money somewhere else because it's going to get a return. Hey, you're going to find your places to get your return when you have cash. When you have cash to decide, hey, that's a good deal, and I'm going to turn $1 on that. And my father said, there's just some people that know how to turn $1, right? They know how to buy something for $1 and sell it for $5, like within, minutes. So it's kind of that concept, right? Is we're trying to help people have the available capital to take advantage when things that they understand that's a good buy. I'm going to, so you're never going to want to stop basically paying premiums because you want to always have that capital available, and if it goes through a policy first, and then it's, eventually this thing is cranking and you're again, cranking's my word of the night. And, it's gonna shower good things on you, right? Because the pile is gonna get bigger and it's gonna allow you to do more. And
it's gonna get to the point where every dollar you put in is gonna spit out $2, $3, $4, $5, $6 back. If you live long enough, it's gonna be. And Nelson's so clear about this in the book that the whole purpose of this is not the whole purpose of getting these policies is to replace the banking function in your life.
Exactly.
And so if you run out of room to pay premium, and then we now can no longer do that, or we can do it in a limited capacity.
Exactly.
And so, again, it is really the most important thing that I think a lot of people overlook, because they assess this as they would an investment or something like that, and it's not that. It's not that at all. This is a tax-advantaged banking system that we're setting up, piggybacking on the insurance company, that gives us the contractual right to use our own money while it continues to grow, so that we can take advantage of those things outside the policy. And personally, I'm very happy to have my own policies, have the contractual right to pay out until I'm quite old. And I'm very happy about that. And I'm also happy that if something were to happen later in life where I, ran out of money to pay those premiums, God forbid, I have contractual rights to stop doing that and to still keep the policy in force. And so we want to do the same thing for our clients,
Yep. So hopefully, we could, I think we'd be beating the horse a bit to keep going. But yeah, I think, that's good food for thought, right? That it's really ends up being a privilege that you've done this for yourself or done this for one of your loved ones by setting up this system, right? Or one of these policies. And, they might not understand it up front. You might not, even when you're the owner and the one putting the premiums in. But trust me, when you live it, you'll be like, yeah, I don't have a client that hasn't said, I wish, I would have liked.
Wish I didn't have to pay this for this long.
Well, and they wish they had started earlier. I think I might have one client because he started when he was 26. So he might not have said, hey, geez, I wish I had started this when I was 19. I don't think I've heard that out of his mouth. But, he's a relatively rare person that started at 26.
Yeah.
And, of course, that's the benefit, right, is, he took the time and he wanted to understand, and he didn't just listen to the pundits and Wall Street, marketeers. I don't know. He's he's off the beaten path kind of thinker. And that's, it's fun to actually do that a little bit, I think people do that in all kinds of ways in their lives, but they're a little more concerned that they're going to do the wrong thing with their money. So that they give it to somebody else to manage, right? Well, let's give it to the banks and let them do all that they do with the money. But then when I need money, I got to go ask them, hey, it's all right if you give me a bunch of money and give me a good rate.
Do I qualify?
Yeah, do I qualify? Well, do you have a job? Have you been paying all your bills on time?
How's your credit score?
What are you going to use it? What kind of collateral are you going to give us?
Do you have any other loans outstanding?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what's your collateral? What can we take that's far more valuable than whatever amount of money we're
that we're going to give you? Yes. The roof over your head. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the life insurance company's never going to take the house from you. Never going to put you out on the street.
Nope. They'll take what's rightfully theirs at the very end if you don't pay it. That's it.
Well, they don't even know that's what you're using the money for.
No, but I'm just saying, if worst case you didn't pay back a life insurance company, worst case they're going to just take that cash value out of the death benefit plus interest, and that's totally fair. And
borrowing from your borrowing from your dead self is one of my favorite Brian.
Exactly.
Quotes, right? So yeah. All right, Doug. I think that's good. I hope, and of course, people reach out. We want the engagement.
If anybody has questions on what we mean about capitalizing, and again, we're not. Like John said, I hope this doesn't come across as too salesy or anything like that, because we're not trying to push people to do things that they're not comfortable with. In the end, I'd never do that. And I know you wouldn't either, John. But
I agree.
Our goal is to coach people into making smart long-term financial decisions. And
Yeah.
If anybody has questions on what we mean about capitalizing and like, how important that is and why you actually want to be paying for a longer period of time, or at least have the right to do that, feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to explain that if we didn't do that adequately today.
Sounds good. All right.
Thanks, John.
All right. Till next time.
Till next time.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the ABCs of IBC.
If you enjoyed listening, please hit subscribe and leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen. It really helps. See you next week.
Bye.